They believed the world was about to change, that contact from beyond was near. So they built devices, made strange preparations, and wrote their final message. Wait for the signal. When the signal came, no one heard it. Only 2 bodies were found, and 2 lead masks staring toward the sky. Was it science, obsession, or something that answered from the other side? Welcome to the mystery that still haunts Brazil's mountains, the lead mask mystery. It began with the curiosity of a boy. August 20th, 1966, Niterói, a quiet coastal city across the bay from Rio de Janeiro. 12-year-old Jorge da Costa Alves was flying his homemade kite near Morro de Vintém, a grassy hill covered in tangled weeds and sparse trees. As he ran up the slope chasing the wind, something metallic caught the sun, a glint that didn't belong among the shrubs. He climbed closer. The air was heavy with heat and something else, the sweet, sickly smell of decay. And then he saw them. 2 men lying side by side on the earth, their suits crisp, their raincoats buttoned, their shoes still polished. Each man wore a thick lead mask that covered his eyes. Not a gas mask, not protective goggles, but crude, rectangular plates, hand-cut, molded to fit only over the upper face. For a long moment, George didn't move. He thought they were asleep, until the flies told him otherwise. He stumbled back down the hill, trembling, and ran to the nearest police outpost. The first officers arrived that evening, Inspector José Venancio Bittencourt among them. By then, the sun had sunk behind the hills, and what little light remained glowed dull red against the horizon. They found the bodies exactly as the boy described, lying side by side, raincoats on despite the tropical heat, no signs of struggle. Between them lay an empty water bottle, 2 towels, and a small notebook. No wallet, no identification, no sign of a fight, weapon, or blood. Bittencourt bent down, brushing away the grass, and studied the masks. The metal was rough, clearly homemade. When he lifted one slightly, he noticed sweat stains still clinging to the inner surface, as if they'd been worn in anticipation, not after death. The notebook, written in Portuguese, held a few scattered notes, but one page stopped everyone cold. 1630, be at the specified location. 1830, ingest capsules. After effect, protect metals. Await signal. Mask. The handwriting was careful but uneven, as if written in a hurry. Bittencourt whispered, "Protect metals? What metals? What signal?" The mystery deepened with every question. 2 days later, police identified the men. Manoel Pereira de Cruz, 32, and Miguel José Viana, 34, both electronics technicians from Campos dos Goitacazes, about 280 kilometers away. They were colleagues and close friends, men known for their technical skills, their calm manner, and their curiosity about electricity, physics, and something else, spiritual energy. According to their families, the 2 left Campos on August 17th, telling their wives they were going to Rio to buy equipment for their shop. They carried cash for the trip, about 2.3 million cruzeiros, and wore suits as if for business. But when police traced their movements, the trail grew strange. A waiter at a bar in Niterói remembered them vividly. They ordered a bottle of water and 2 towels, nothing more, no food. They seemed anxious. They checked their watches often. Then they left, heading toward Morro de Vintém, never to be seen alive again. I still remember opening those old photos from the 1966 police archive. The men's faces hidden behind lead masks, the notebook's faint ink lines slanted from humidity and sweat. I've seen many cases, suicides, murders, cult rituals, But something about this one felt different, methodical, controlled, almost rehearsed. Why two technicians, men of logic and precision, would walk to a hill, take pills, and die side by side, with masks over their eyes? There was meaning here. I could feel it buried beneath the confusion. Experts examined the masks closely. They were cut from thin sheets of lead, the kind used to line electronics or shield against radiation. No straps, no hinges, just flat metal shaped to cover the upper half of the face, leaving mouth and nose exposed. Someone had taken time to craft them by hand. Lead isn't easy to work with. It's heavy, toxic, and difficult to mold without tools. And yet these men, both skilled with electronics, would have had the means to make them. The question wasn't how they made them, it was why. The medical examiner noted no visible injuries, no bruises, no broken bones, no gunshots. Toxicology tests, however, came back inconclusive. Decomposition had advanced too far in the tropical heat. The only thing clear, they died at the same time, side by side. No alcohol, no defensive wounds, no sign of robbery. It looked like they had lain down voluntarily, calm, composed, waiting for something. The cryptic notebook became the center of speculation. Who wrote it? And what was the signal? Investigators discovered both men were part of a local group of technicians and enthusiasts who dabbled in spiritualism, particularly a branch known as scientific spiritualism, mixing physics, parapsychology, and belief in communication with higher beings. Their friends said the two often discussed contacting spirits or extraterrestrial entities through electronic energy, believing certain frequencies could bridge worlds. One acquaintance recalled hearing Miguel say, "We are going to meet beings of light, and we must protect ourselves from their radiance." Protect from radiance. Masks made of lead. Suddenly the notebook's line, "Protect metals, await signal, mask," didn't sound random anymore. News of the discovery spread fast. Brazilian newspapers filled with headlines. Technicians found dead in strange masks. Were they victims of a science experiment or UFO contact? Neighbors claimed they'd seen strange lights over Morro de Vintém days before. Others whispered of cults, radiation experiments, and government cover-ups. The UFO theory quickly gained traction. The idea. Manoel and Miguel believed they'd been invited to witness a phenomenon, possibly through a psychic channel, a signal they'd receive at 1830. They were to take capsules to prepare the body, wear masks to shield their eyes, and await the blinding appearance of something divine or alien. But nothing appeared, except death. When police searched the site, the men's money was gone. The waiter from earlier said they'd paid for the towels and water with large bills. Yet no cash was found near the bodies. Robbery seemed possible, but then again, who kills two men by letting them swallow capsules and lie down voluntarily? Who carries away their cash yet leaves behind expensive watches, a notebook, and the eerie lead masks? It didn't fit. Investigator said, "When I walk through cases like this, I look for logic first. But the more I read, the less logical it became." The note was deliberate, the timing precise, the location remote yet chosen. They expected something at 6:30 p.m. A signal, radio, light, energy, a being, and then silence. Whatever they waited for, it either never came or it came, and no one lived to describe it. Investigators later found that weeks before their deaths, Manoel and Miguel had tried similar experiments. Neighbors reported seeing them in a remote field at night, watching the sky, using homemade devices, and wearing, yes, lead masks. One night, a loud explosion was heard. The men returned shaken, saying the experiment had gone wrong. So when they left for Niteroi on August 17th, carrying new masks and a note of instructions, perhaps they believed this time it would succeed. They would finally witness the signal. They just didn't know it would be their last. In death, they left behind more questions than answers. Two friends, bonded by curiosity, united by faith in something invisible. Were they victims of their own belief or pawns in a darker game? In the days after their discovery, reporters swarmed Morro de Vintém. Locals told stories of blue lights flickering above the hill, of strange men visiting the site at night, of whispers that the government knew more than they said. And then, quietly, the case was closed. Death by unknown causes. But the story didn't end there. Because months later, something else surfaced. A clue buried deep in a workshop 200 kilometers away that would reopen everything. Dawn the next morning, Morro de Vintém became a swarm of uniforms and confusion. Journalists arrived in waves, their camera shutters clacking like insects. Locals leaned on fences. Homens das máscaras de chumbo, the men with the lead masks. Detective José Venancio Bittencourt, the lead investigator, arrived just as the mist began to lift. He adjusted his hat, crouched beside the bodies, and studied the masks closely. They were crudely cut from thin lead sheets, molded just large enough to cover the eyes. No straps, no padding, just cold metal pressed against skin. Bittencourt said, "It's not a costume. It's deliberate, functional even, but for what?" He looked around. The grass around the men was untouched, no sign of a struggle, no footprints except their own. They had climbed here calmly, voluntarily. Beside them, a notebook page fluttered in the wind. The writing was in Portuguese, neat but hurried. It read, 16:30, be at the agreed place. 18:30, ingest capsules after the effect. Protect metals, await signal, mask. That was it. No context, no explanation, just those few cryptic lines. Every investigator who read that note felt the same cold chill crawl up their spine. It sounded less like instructions and more like a ritual. The two men were soon identified as Manoel Pereira de Cruz and Miguel José Viana, both from Campos dos Goitacazes, about 200 kilometers from Niteroi. Electronics technicians, intelligent, skilled, quiet men. They told their families they were traveling to buy materials for a business project, but that was a lie. On August 17, 1966, they boarded a bus to Niteroi. Each man carried a modest amount of cash, a raincoat, and a small notebook. One of them mentioned needing to attend an important meeting. The last known sighting came from a waitress named Maria de Lourdes, who worked at a small bar near the bus terminal. She said, "They came in around 2 p.m., quiet, polite, but anxious. They asked for a bottle of water, only one, and left without drinking it. They said they'd come back later, but they never did." The receipt confirmed the date, August 17th, the same day they were last seen alive. It meant one thing. After leaving that bar, they climbed Morro de Vintém before nightfall, and they never came back down. At first, investigators thought the lead masks were some kind of protection against radiation, a tool used in their electronics work. But the crude design told a different story. Bittencourt said, puzzled, if this was radiation shielding, why only the eyes, and why bring it up a mountain with no equipment? The question lingered unanswered. So they took the masks to a lab for testing. No traces of radiation, no special materials, just common lead, hand-cut, rough, unfinished. That's when rumors began to spread. Locals whispered that the men were spiritists, followers of an esoteric movement known as scientific spiritualism. According to some accounts, They were fascinated by psychic communication, extraterrestrial contact, and the idea of energy transmission through light. They'd been studying strange books, manuals mixing engineering, mysticism, and UFO beliefs. What if the lead masks weren't meant to protect from radiation, but from something else? A blinding light, perhaps, something otherworldly. Detectives began decoding every line of that notebook. Most pages contained lists of tools and circuit diagrams, normal for technicians, but a few entries stood out. Be strong. Prepare for contact. Ensure signal devices ready. Masks necessary for protection. One page had sketches of circular shapes, almost like antennas or discs, surrounded by rays. Bittencourt said, reading quietly, "Wait for signal. Mask. Ingestion." He tapped his pen on the table. Could it be they were trying to make contact? It was a possibility too strange to ignore. Brazil in the 1960s was deep in a wave of UFO fever, sightings across Minas Gerais, Sao Paulo, and Rio de Janeiro. People claimed to see lights descending from the sky, and for many spiritualist groups, those lights weren't just machines, they were messengers. The coroner's office in Niterói received the bodies a few days later, but by then, decomposition had advanced, making toxicology difficult. Still, the examiner noted something odd. The stomachs contained no alcohol, no drugs, and no signs of poison. Yet both men appeared to have died suddenly, with no external trauma. This is what the coroner said. Thoughtful, the organs show no evidence of violence or disease. The heart appears to have stopped abruptly, almost as if, short pause, something triggered cardiac arrest simultaneously. No struggle, no wounds, two men, side by side, as if waiting for something that never came. Whatever they had ingested, as the notebook instructed, left no trace. Then came a new lead. A young boy from the nearby hillside told police that on the night of August 17th, he had seen a strange orange light hovering above Morro de Vintém. Surprised, it was round, short pause, glowing. It just stayed there, and then it vanished. The police logged it, but didn't take it seriously. But among the spiritualist circles in Rio, that description meant only one thing: contact. Investigators tracked down a man named Elcio Gomez, a friend of both victims. He admitted they had been part of an informal spiritualist group, experimenting with telepathic communication and UFO contact rituals. Elcio added, thoughtful, "They told me they were going to test a new transmitter. Said they'd receive a signal from beings of light. They needed the masks to protect themselves from the radiance." To some, it sounded insane. To others, it was the first plausible explanation of why two technicians would hike up a hill, lie down, and wait to die, wearing masks made of lead. Brazilian newspapers had a field day. Headlines screamed, "Men die after strange scientific experiment." Shocked, UFO contact ritual ends in tragedy. The public imagination ignited. Every theory, from chemical overdose to alien contact, spread like wildfire. Radio station reported that local authorities are baffled by the mysterious deaths of two men found wearing lead masks on a Niterói hillside. Some suggest the incident may be linked to experiments involving unknown rays or psychic energy. Behind closed doors, however, the investigators were stuck. No weapon, no drugs, no motive, just two men, two masks, and one cryptic note. And then, another strange discovery. When police searched Miguel's workshop back in Campos, they found blueprints, half-finished diagrams for a signal receiver. Next to it, a third mask, unfinished, but unmistakably similar. Bittencourt said, thoughtful, there was supposed to be a third man. The revelation changed everything. Who was he? Why didn't he go with them? Or worse, did he send them there? Neighbors recalled seeing a stranger visiting the men a few days before their departure, described as tall, wearing dark glasses, and speaking with a calm, almost hypnotic voice. No one ever identified him. Some called him a recruiter, others whispered he wasn't human at all. Weeks passed, the bodies were buried, but the legend had already taken root. Children dared each other to climb Morro de Vintém at night to see the lights. Locals claimed they still saw faint orange glows flickering on the hillside. And for many, the mystery of the lead masks became less about death and more about what the men were trying to see before they died. Were they victims of a dangerous experiment, members of a secret cult, or explorers who crossed into something their minds and hearts couldn't withstand? Whatever the truth, the mountain remembered. Bittencourt said, "Case remains unsolved. Cause of death, undetermined. But something tells me these men were not expecting to die. They were expecting a sign. And perhaps, in their final moments, they saw something that no one else ever did. Something bright enough to make them wear lead masks to protect their eyes." The investigation closed with more questions than answers, and as the years passed, the case slipped into folklore. But one thing remained constant. On that hill in Niterói, Brazil, the air still hums with the memory of two men who went to meet the unknown. And whatever they saw that night, it saw them too. What really happened on that hill, the experiments, the signal, and the truth behind the lead masks?
Months later, Detective Bittencourt returns to the hill. Vegetation has swallowed the clearing where the bodies once lay. Only two faint depressions remain. Bittencourt said, "They came here seeking light. Now the earth keeps their silence." He kneels, brushing aside dry leaves, and places a small metal tag into the soil, marking where each man had rested. Above, the sky is hazy, the sun dulled to a silver disk. In that stillness, he feels the same question echo through his chest. Did they really die for science or for faith? Back in Rio, the forensic reports arrive from the Federal Technical Institute. Pages of data, graphs, and photographs. One report details a chemical residue found on the inside of the masks, a trace of mercury vapor and chloride salts, substances sometimes used in amateur radiation experiments. The report from lab technician reads, "Could be industrial exposure. Could be something they mixed themselves. There's no way to tell how much they inhaled. Mercury inhalation could cause hallucinations, cardiac failure, even sudden death. But there was no container, no residue nearby. If they use chemicals, they clean up perfectly, too perfectly." That's when another document lands on Bittencourt's desk, a witness statement dated August 16th, the day before their deaths. An electronic shop owner from Campos remembered selling the men a roll of thin lead, insulated wire, and batteries. He claimed they'd spoken of building a field receptor. He also recalled something else. Shopkeeper said, "One of them asked, if the human I could see a magnetic pulse." To a scientist, the question was nonsense. To a believer, it was everything. Whatever they were constructing, it wasn't just a device. It was a gateway. Through Elcio Gomez, police discovered that the group once included a third technician, Joaquin Tavares, who had disappeared weeks before the incident. Neighbors said he'd grown paranoid, claiming the others were not ready for what they were summoning. Bittencourt reading file. He warned them, "You must prepare your souls before the signal. The light can blind more than eyes." But Joaquin vanished. Some say he fled to the interior. Others whispered he was taken. When officers visited his abandoned workshop, they found burn marks on the ceiling and a melted radio coil as it exposed extreme heat for a split second. No fire damage elsewhere. The same pattern investigators had seen on the men's metal tools. Coincidence or continuity? Weeks later, a journalist named Carlos de Oliveira digs deeper and obtains a diary belonging to Miguel Viana's cousin, himself a self-proclaimed Spiritual Engineer. Its final entry reads, "We will attempt synchronization on the 17th. 2 volunteers will ascend. They must guard the eyes. The light is truth and death alike." It was a missing context to that cryptic note. Protect metals, await signal, masked. They truly believed the cosmic event was scheduled, like tuning a radio to a celestial frequency. Let's rewind to August 17th, 1966. 2 men board a bus from Campos. The world outside blurs into sugarcane fields and gray sky. Inside, Miguel sketches a diagram of concentric waves. Manoel folds a piece of lead like origami, tracing its edges with trembling fingers. Manoel whisper, "Once the signal comes, we'll see it together." Miguel, "And if it burns?" Manoel, "Then we'll know it was real." Hours later, they reach Niterói. By water. Climb. Wait. At 6:30 p.m., as instructed, they ingest the capsules, perhaps sedatives, perhaps something else. They lie down side by side, raincoats shielding their suits, masks pressed over their eyes. A phantom fills the air. Lightning flickers beyond the bay. An orange glow spreads across the clouds. And for a fleeting moment, maybe, they saw it, the signal, the thing they'd built their faith upon. Then silence. The police case is archived under unexplained deaths. No foul play, no closure. Detective Bittencourt files his last note. Bittencourt said, "They were searching for proof beyond the limits of our instruments. They found it or it found them. But the story refuses to die." Within months, tabloids reawaken it. Scientists burned by alien ray. Secret government experiment exposed. Yet beneath the noise, quiet believers keep the legend alive, claiming the men had succeeded, and what killed them wasn't failure, but contact. In 1967, a fisherman on Guanabara Bay reports a glowing sphere hovering near the same hill. He describes it in detail, the same color, the same silent movement. Police ignore it, but for the locals, the sighting seals a myth. The light comes back for those who listen. It becomes a pilgrimage spot. People leave offerings, batteries, radio parts, bits of metal, as if trying to finish the men's experiment for them. 50 years later, historians and scientists revisit the case. Documentaries dissect it. Forums debate theories. Some claim the capsules contain LSD. Others point to mercury traces as evidence of toxic exposure. And a few still whisper extraterrestrial contact. But none can explain the precision. Why the timing? Why the masks? Why that mountain? One retired technician confides in a journalist. The technician said, "They thought the human mind was a receiver, that if you cleared your thoughts at the right frequency, you could hear them." Perhaps the lead masks were not for protection, but for focus, to shut out the world and see only the signal within. In 2011, Brazilian physicists re-examined archive materials. They conclude that the cause of death was likely acute heart failure due to stress or psychotropic ingestion. But even they admit the ritualistic pattern defies logic. The physicist said, "Science can tell us how hearts stop. It cannot tell us why men climb mountains to meet light. And that, perhaps, is the enduring gravity of the leak mask mystery. It isn't about aliens or chemicals or conspiracies. It's about belief, and the lengths to which humans will go to prove what they believe is real." Years after retirement, Bittencourt dreams of the hill. He's walking to the tall grass when 2 figures appear ahead. Suits immaculate, masks gleaming in moonlight. They turn to him silently, point upward. Above, an orange light pulses like a heartbeat in clouds. He wakes with the taste of metal on his tongue and the sound of static fading from his ears. Morro do Vintém stands quiet now. The city has grown around it. Apartment blocks, traffic, laughter. But at night, when the wind shifts just right, locals say they still hear a faint electrical hum rising from the hillside. Maybe it's just the city's pulse. Or maybe, somewhere beyond the noise of our machines, 2 frequencies still wait to be heard. 2 voices calling through the static of time. Whatever the truth, the legend remains. 2 men climb a mountain in search of light. They wore masks of lead to protect their eyes. And in that final moment before death, perhaps they did see something. Something too bright, too vast, and too strange to this world to understand. This was the story of the lead masked mystery, a riddle of faith, science, and the thin line between vision and madness. Because sometimes the greatest danger isn't in what we can't see, but in what we finally do. The hill is silent now, but the legend of the lead masked will live on. Two men chase a signal they believe could change everything, and they paid the ultimate price. If this story gave you chills, subscribe, hit the notification bell, and leave your theories in the comments. For more unsolved mysteries and hidden truths, stay tuned to Real Echoes of Reality, because some stories refuse to stay buried.